Welcome to the Badger247 show. I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger247 writers John McNamara and Nick Osen. It is great to see you guys as always, and we appreciate everyone tuning in here to the Badger247 show. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel and subscribing to Badger247.com for all of the latest news and updates. And one of the biggest updates we got this week, Nick, was the commitment of four-star receiver Jayden Petit down from Florida. And this, as you've written, is a big deal, not just for the fact that they got a very good player in Petit, but for also what it means for Pat Lambert and the staff as a whole.
Yeah, Perko, I appreciate that. We'll talk about Jayden Petit, the player, and I want to save some of that for my guy J-Mac as well. But, man, what this means, I wrote, and this, would have been well before, you guys were kind of part of our 247 family. I wrote, and I want to say early to mid-March, I think Jordan Reed is going to take wide receiver recruiting to a new level here in Madison. I was feeling really good about Zach Washington, obviously Bardo, great things from Petit at the time. Legree wasn't quite as much in the picture, but you know what I'm saying. And obviously it's very early, but I think he has done that, guys. I mean, this just doesn't happen like in Madison. It doesn't happen, frankly, for that many Big Ten programs. If you're not Ohio State or Oregon, this is a top 30 wide receiver, top 25, depending on where you look in the country. He's got legitimate, jumbo size, production, athleticism. And these other schools weren't just kind of in the mix, without getting into obviously, too deep in some of the crazy details, a lot of these schools had big money to offer. And I think that Wisconsin was able to use a little bit of everything to get, this great player here. I think that, of course, NIL is a thing and things of that nature. A lot of the visits coming up were huge. But overall, guys, and J-Mac, I'll toss to you with this, but I believe relationships truthfully and a need for that type of player won out here. I got a little bit from Jayden. We talked for about a minute this week after. I think that was really notable. I've gotten to know some of his family. And, man, you sit here now with kind of some potential still going down the road. You're looking like, hey, it's not a 25-man class, but some of these offensive weapons are the best we've seen in a while, John.
Yeah, significant get, and a lot of the stuff Nick said I would echo as well. But, I wrote in our Commitment 101 piece, Wisconsin really trusted those relationships. It trusted its board. It allowed a guy like Zachary Washington to explore some other options when I don't want to call it the safe play, but I think that was very much in play of, hey, we could close things down with Zach Washington and kind of move forward here. But, they really continued, like Nick said, to trust that relationship, digging deep into her a little bit. And a couple of people I talked to after that commitment, they talked about the job that they did with his dad. I was told that his dad really was sold after that official visit. And, the dad was looking at I guess not an old school, but a more traditional college experience of, the football, the school, the culture, the game day, and all that kind of goes into that. And that's something Wisconsin presented very well, I think. But even going back up to when Wisconsin got him on campus again this month, Nick and I saw him at camp, and really from Nick's point of view, I got a chance to talk to him, and he's like, I don't know if this thing's done. When you get a guy up for the official, then get him back for the unofficial, you think that everything's moving in the right direction. He ends up taking that official to Missouri on the 20th, I think that last weekend when guys could get up there. So credit to a lot of people here, a lot of people involved in this one. Significant get right away is Wisconsin's top get in this class in terms of rankings. It's just to finish it, Wisconsin just doesn't get guys like this. They haven't got guys like this. And I've been doing this for over 20 years or so. These are just he's a unique kid, and a kid that gets you excited to see what he can do when he gets on campus as that true boundary receiver that I can't recall the last guy that Wisconsin's got with those type of measurables. And maybe a guy like Nick Toon, I don't know, but there aren't that many guys they've got like Jayden Petit. Now they just got to hang on until December.
And Perko, if I can just add real quick, depending on when folks are watching or listening, this content piece might be out. I'm kind of wrapping it up, but I spoke with, this hybrid, like awesome family member / longtime trainer, of course, of Jayden. He was up there with us, John, at camp as well. And, I just feel like I came over and told you after I talked with Jayden, I'm not sure I've talked with a kinder, any type of player, but 4-star, top of the line guy that was just so appreciative of the time, always up for an interview, sharing what you need, just really impressive. I think he's a terrific cultural fit. And I think it's going to be a really, really big time ad. John, I'm sure you agree, like a guy you probably expect to see on the field in his first 18 to 22 months on campus.
Yeah, I wrote that too in the piece I did. I just don't know how you redshirt him, right? And that receiver room, it's going to turn over a little bit. It's a little top heavy right now. I just think that he's a guy that you're going to want to find some snaps for. We're not quite sure yet if he's going to be an early enrollee, but that certainly is the trend with guys now. I think Wisconsin had 16 of their group enroll early in this 25 class. So I don't want to say the expectation is that he will, but a lot of these kids are. Let's say you get up there in the spring. He's got 15 practices. He's got the summer. I just don't see how you tell a kid like him, we're going to shut you down for the fall, work a little scout team. Now, look, anything can happen. It's tough to play as a true freshman at any spot, but a guy like that at receiver, I think that you could find a role for him. I think he's a type of guy, those guys from Florida, they want to play, right? They want to get up and they want to get rolling right away. So my thought is that he plays right away, but let's get this kid signed. Let's put all that to bed and then kind of see where he's at in a couple months here.
Yes to an early enrollee, John.
Okay, good. Thanks for confirming.
Told me that Thursday night. Yes, sir.
Well, that's a really good sign for the receiver room, I think, going forward. Nick, I'm going to sort of wrap our recruiting talk here a little bit as they move into the dead period or the summer less contact period. I don't know. The calendar changes every 6 months, it seems. But, Nick, what do the Badgers need to do finishing out the rest of this class? Obviously, Amari Latimer is still priority one. So if we take him out of the equation, what are the other priorities for the staff to finish up the class of 26?
Yeah, Perko, I love that question, man. So outside of Amari, of course, I'm sure John and I agree, at some point you're going to need an edge. Now, I don't think somebody asked us guys on the board this week. I'm not in panic mode there because of the talent that was brought in the last class. However, as I think John and I can both speak to, you don't want to rely on that position in the portal. A, because it might not always hit, and B, it's the second most expensive position of a marquee guy after quarterback, from my understanding the last couple of years. So I think obviously you talked about Latimer or a big-time running back. I think we feel good on Amari right now. Edge, you need a second corner. Like, there's no question to me you need that guy. As of last check earlier this week, still into things with Jamie and Theodore. I don't love that the decision isn't coming as quickly as I had expected. So I'm not sure if the Vols are kind of making some headway there, but Badgers were certainly deep in there the last time I checked. And then I think ideally, so that would be 15, 16, 17. I think that's 17 guys. It's going to be at least 18 or 19. So probably that second safety spot, maybe a late lineman, but I know they just got the PWO that John and I have both been impressed with, Aiden Dirksen. So I think you'll need another body at safety. That is a decent position where you see some late bloomers for senior evals. I think DBs and wideouts, you can often see that. But otherwise, you're looking at, hey, it's getting closer to fall 2027 guys, and then probably attacking the portal for the 7, 8, 10 spots, whatever you need, but not rely on fully.
Safety, corner, edge. That third lineman, not to look too far down the road, but you look at that 27 class of linemen, especially from in-state. He said, that third lineman may not be a necessity. It might be more of a luxury. Again, none of those guys are in the bag yet. It's still early. I don't want to make it seem like, they got their 4 guys locked up in 27, but you look at the talent there specifically from inside the state, and maybe it changes your outlook of, hey, unless someone really blows our doors off in the summer, going into the fall, we feel good about the 2 guys we have, and then we can load up again, go 4 or 5 in that 27 class. But yeah, like Nick said, 18, 19, then you save that room for the portal. You always got your eye on that 105 for the roster limit potentially coming up. Who knows? So, it could be at 15 real soon here, and then you're fighting for those last couple spots.
I think that what a lot of people are talking about, and where both of you guys were just yesterday, was the Wisconsin Basketball Advanced Camp. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit with you guys because there were some really impressive prospects there. Obviously, headlined John by Donovan Davis, and he is someone that obviously a lot of people in the nation are going to be after in the class of 27. What stood out about him to you, and where do things stand in his recruitment?
Yeah, Wisconsin Advanced Camp, probably one of my favorite events on the calendar. And great guards kind of always open it up to, Joe Schmoes like Nick and I, and the journalists out there. I mean, it's a great chance to just get this really in-depth look at these kids throughout an entire day. And it's as fun to watch those kids play, but it's also fun to watch the interactions that are going on. Who the staff is talking to, what parents are they talking to, who are they spending more time on, who are they pointing at in the gym. It's a fun experience to get to take part of. So it's always one that you put on the calendar. But you mentioned Donovan Davis. A year ago at this time, he was just picking up that offer from Wisconsin at the advanced camp. A 4-star kid for 24/7. I think we have him right now, Nick, as the top in-state prospect in that 27 class, which is turning out to be a very, very good loaded class of in-state kids that are those rising juniors there. Davis, I mean, big physical kid, can get a lot done in the paint, but also he's very comfortable with the ball in his hands. I think in the write-up I wrote, probably the most exciting thing to watch is when he grabs a rebound, gets out in transition, pushes a little bit, got that head of steam. And I mean, not a whole lot of guys are going to get in front of him, and then he'd get to the rim, really soft finisher with both of his hands. There's a reason why he's rated as high as he has. Going into July, there's going to be a lot of teams circling him. He feels like a kid that could be the quote unquote blue blood kid. I know Kentucky's kind of kicking the tires right now. He could be a kid, 6 months, 12 months from now, that has a bulk of the offers out there that are available to these high school kids. So really impressed with him. I think the overall takeaway is that he came up there with an offer in hand and camped again with the Badgers. I mean, that's a good sign. Very early for him. But, a lot of those kids are going to earn that offer. Not many return with the offer in hand. Although Dooney Johnson did as well, maybe a couple others this year. But really good sign, I think, early for Wisconsin. Nick could maybe speak to it a little bit more in depth. I think Wisconsin, Iowa State right now, but there's going to be a lot more schools that he's going to be pouring over real soon here. It could be coming as early as July.
Yeah, Perko, I would just love to, just kind of build off of that and share a couple of my things. I will say, first off, the camp is amazing. I loved covering it alongside John last year. It was pretty cool to be teammates at it this year straight up, because while we were there, Perko, there's huge football news coming with Jayden Petit that we had just talked about. So that was obviously, a really cool thing just to have John on my team and, Peyton, Evan, all of us together. But with Davis, being honest, got obviously some old ties, having covered Iowa State for a while. I do think the Cyclones are going to be a tough one there as a whole. I think the Badgers are without question in it and doing a really good job recruiting him. I think just, following him throughout the circuit, showing him how he can fit. Like, he is, I'm sure you've talked to him too, John, incredibly mature, like really a no nonsense, all business. Like, this is what I'm looking for type of thing. I would just love to add with Dooney Johnson. I'm fortunate to a lot of these programs. Team Hero let me go to some practices this year, and his ceiling, like he was just bumped a little bit down in our rankings, not ours personally, but with 247 recently, and I think he's got the shot to make his way back up, because Perko, his ceiling, it's still probably the highest in the state. I'd say just ceiling wise, him or maybe Kadra Kneppel, who I also think is a little bit low where he was kind of rated. Davis looked terrific, like J-Mac said. And just another name that, I got to speak with. We'll have some content, and he's not probably going to end up getting a Badger offer this time around. He's, again, incredibly mature. He mentioned, I'm probably a mid-major guard right now, but I think John touched on him. I know we talked about him in person JoJo Mitchell from Minnesota, a shorter guard. But, like, if you're talking about just who was the best player in some of these live games, Perko, he's like 5'11", 6 foot, 180, 185, built really well, like a tailback, like strong. Man, he wasn't afraid of, I don't remember exactly who his teammates were. So, like, let's say he was going against like a Donovan or Dooney or Trev Rademacher, like these big names in Wisconsin. He wasn't afraid at all to attack the cup. We will have some content just because he was here and really good. But like J-Mac said, man, one of the top 5 events of the year.
That's really awesome. I think one name that everyone wants to hear about is Latravian Fenderson, the current Badger commit. John, what did he show against some of this very good talent that we've talked about?
Yeah, I was trying to find a way to write this. I wasn't really able to, though. He approached this camp as like I'm the top dog here, right? And it wasn't that way 12 months ago, because 12 months ago he was still kind of scratching the surface. I think he picked up that offer at advanced camp last year. So just the way he carried himself throughout the day stood out to me. The way he competed stood out to me. And then another big thing is, really, I had a chance to see him really going back to his freshman year at the Prairie School. And, he's lost that baby fat. And, I'm not saying that he was out of shape or anything like that, but when you're a high school kid and you really dedicate yourself, a lot of times that could really show. And DME Academy in Delafield, he's spent the last year there. That's basketball at a pretty high clip there. And I think they focus on the basketball, but the conditioning, the way you eat, the way you prepare, all those type of things. I think a lot of that showed in what we saw from Fenderson, at the advanced camp on Thursday. Really, really impressed. I kind of compared him to a higher ceiling Khalil Iverson. The shot's still kind of a work in progress to me, but he was big, physical, and like he was getting into guys. One that kind of caught me right in the morning was him and Jaylen Brown going at each other, and Jaylen Brown didn't back down, to a guy 2 years older than him potentially. So really liked what he showed there. Again, the outside shot is what I really want to see improve. Maybe the next jump for him, but I think he's going to give Wisconsin, which is kind of loaded up on these shooters, a nice athletic presence that could really get it done on both ends of the court. Like when he chooses to lock down, like he can lock you down on the perimeter and really be a pest there. So, that early eval by Sharif Chambliss and company, I think is looking better and better by the day. I think he's a really nice addition to that 2026 class. He's going to give Wisconsin something a little bit different than they may not have on the roster right now.
Yeah, John, I loved that breakdown. Honestly, not a ton of different things to add other than, when we went out and saw him in May during an open eval period, defense, physicality were 2 of my favorite things. What I love about Fenderson is, guys, he'll be so honest with what he needs to add. I got a short interview with him. We'll run that next week or so. Again, 3-point shooting, ball handling. He just wants to keep adding on. Love what you said about DME. And yeah, I'll just say Jaylen too. Obviously, he's somebody that earned an offer. And, if you're joining us at Badger247, we hinted that could come for, I think, at least a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. Really love his game. Looking forward to kind of following him more. But yeah, just love that breakdown, John.
So I'm going to have a little bit of a shorter episode here today, but I do want to throw a couple rapid fire questions at you guys about the advanced camp. You already talked about JoJo Mitchell. Who was your other favorite player who's probably not going to be a high D1 player that you got to watch there, John?
Oh, man, it's a tough question. I don't know if he's going to play D1 at all, but Sam Pitroff, he's a kid from Racine Lutheran. He's a kid that I kind of starred a few times. Again, he's not going to wind up at Wisconsin. I don't know where he's going to wind up. I was familiar with him a little bit this past year. I think he plays for Playground. Wisconsin.
Yeah, he does with Fenderson.
But he was, really nice. We had nice sheets this year, which was a little bit different. And to be able to go back and forth on that sheet when there's 200 campers there, that's really a nice added feature. But he's a kid that I kind of put an X down next to a handful of times. He's a lefty, really good scorer, pretty good size, nice wingspan. I mean, there's a lot to like there. If, I don't know exactly what his offer sheet looks like right now, but he feels like a type of guy that could play some sort of D1 basketball, maybe high level D2 basketball. I liked him quite a bit as a guy that like didn't know was going to be there, didn't know a ton about him, but kind of checked the sheet a handful of times to make sure that I knew who he was as I was watching him.
Nick, how about you?
Yeah, amazing question, Perko. I don't know if that was you or somebody from our boards or both. I love that one. So I'm going to go a little bit kind of like John said. I'm not saying that these guys won't play D1 because one already has some offers and another, I think we agree, will play somewhere. I've got Max Jones, somebody I've gotten to know the last few months with some Team Hero stuff. Perko, he had a game, man, he hit 5 threes on the Kohl Center floor. I'd say probably 5 of 7, 5 of 8, so really high clip. 2 were beyond 28 to 30 feet. So, like, really impressive showing. I think with the eyes that Team Hero gets, like, he might get some high major, certainly mid-major. Like I said, he already has a couple offers. Built really well, high motor. So I like him. Really a great program. And then Rademacher, and I'm going to throw in one more name. I'm sorry, because I think John and I both like this kid. And I don't know what level he ends up at. He has some high major offers now, but Trev Rademacher and Andrew Jensen. I knew both of them were going to be there, but they had a great battle. It was in the NJP, so it wasn't on the Kohl Center floor. But like Rademacher would kind of come down, back him down, maybe hit a little lefty baby hook. Jensen had a couple hammer slams. He was playing with JoJo Mitchell. Andrew's been so gracious with these interviews. So I'd say maybe those guys don't end up in Wisconsin, right? But like, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to throw this out question maybe for you guys, maybe for the future. I would set my over-under for this class in D1 recruits in the state at like 10.5 or 11.
All right.
Because I've spoken with people, too, that know more than me, and they think this is the best class that's been in the state in 15-plus years.
That's saying something.
The 27?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some dudes there, and it's insane. These guys are just halfway through their journey, right? I mean, there's going to be some more names that emerge, but those high end guys, I'd have to take a look. I probably will because I like stuff like this. But like, we talked about what Wisconsin's offered the top 4 right now. Knippel's sitting there potentially as that 5th guy. Going back, what are the most loaded classes that Wisconsin's had in-state wise? I got to take a look, go stroll down memory lane there. But I mean, the group is really strong, and it's a big reason why that Team Hero 16U team is having a good amount of success.
Well, tell us here in the comments what in-state class you think was the best in the last, let's say, 15, 25 years or ever. If you want to go back further than that, let us know. That's going to be tough for me. I'm not going to lie. The pre-2000s recruiting, not a lot of there on the internet or in my pre-adolescent brain at that point. Well, it's probably still pre-adolescent. Who am I kidding? But we appreciate everyone here for tuning in to the Badger247 show. Please keep the questions coming on the message boards. We really appreciate them. We'll be getting to more of them next week. For now, that's Nick Osen and John McNamara, and I'm Matt Perkins here. Make sure to head on over to Badger247.com and subscribe for all the great message boards and the best information you're going to find.